Alright, welcome everyone. I'm going to teach you everything I know about the gamepad, which isn't everything, but it's a good amount. Before teaching you how to do certain things that you'd expect from a game that uses a gamepad, I'm going to teach you a couple of these values that you could actually use instead of construct. Okay, so here I have a blank file and we're just going to add the gamepad object type, and I'm going to add a text object type so that we could see the raw output that the gamepad actually, outputs. After we have that set, I'm going to go to my event sheet, and just for this example, I'm going to use every tick so I don't have to constantly do different conditions to update. In a real game, you wouldn't use every tick. You'd use another method so that you lower your CPU usage basically. And it's just good practice to not use every tick when it's not necessary. So every tick, we're going to set the text, and before anything really, I want to just find out how many gamepads are connected, which should be 1. So I'm just going to label it like this, &, and you do gamepad dot and gamepad count right there. And that's all it takes. It doesn't take any parameters. I'm going to be using a PlayStation 4 controller. It's not connected, but I'm going to connect it right now. And it should update right. Oh, okay, so you connect it. And then you actually have to press something on the controller and it'll update. There you go. I just moved one of the analog sticks and now it detected my controller. Now there's one controller connected. If I had another one here, for example, and connected that one and then pressed something on that controller, it would also detect that one. It would go up to 2. So now that we have our controller connected, we could actually start messing around with some of the buttons and the joysticks. I'm going to begin with the joystick, so let's just get started. So I'm going to be measuring the input from the left joystick's x-axis, and this is how you would go about doing that. So I'm just adding that to label, but the main thing here is gamepad.axis, and since this is the first controller that I have connected, I'm going to be putting 0. The count starts from 0. When I input my second controller, the gamepad number for that would be 1, and then the third one is 2, and so on. So since this is my first controller, or the only controller that I have connected, I'm going to be putting 0. Now for the index, that's going to be, I believe it's 0. 0 would be the left stick's x-axis. It's like the ID of the axis of the sticks. And I'm going to be listing them all out right now. Okay, so if you're using anything like an Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller, this is what each axis or each index, this is the label for each index. This should work for, like I said, any PlayStation or Xbox controller. If you have a controller with one joystick, for example, you would just use 0 and 1. But generally, this is what will work for most gamepads. I'm going to move the left stick to the left, and I should get an output of -100 because the left is the negative and the right is positive. And for my y-axis, when I push, for example, my left stick, if I push it upwards, I should get -100, and if I push it down, I should get 100. These values are from 0 to 100. Now this is considering that we have a dead zone of 25, so it's not gonna detect it until after 25, or it shouldn't. But we're gonna test this out right now. So I have -100 on the Y. I'm gonna push it down, and as you can see, the bottom is around 25. It's around there. And then it goes up to 100. Now my left stick X to the left, my left stick X to the right, and it should work for these two values as well. I'm just going in a circle. Now that dead zone that I mentioned earlier can actually be changed right here. Analog dead zone, you could change it to wherever you want. Make it lower if you want it to be more sensitive, or higher if you want it to be less sensitive. Another way to get the axis is by getting the raw axis. Now the only difference is that instead of 0 to 100, it does 0 to 1. And there is no dead zone. It'll detect every tiny little movement, and I'll be showing that with the left stick. Okay, so right now it's showing 0 because it hasn't detected my controller yet, but as soon as I press a single button, it'll detect my controller, and this is what my left stick is outputting. I mean, I'm not moving it, I'm not touching it, you know? It's an old controller, so I don't know if all controllers do this. I know this controller isn't that new, and this is what it's doing. I'm not pressing it like I said. If I were to press it to the left, I should get -1 on left raw X. There you go. And yes, -100 on left stick X. That's the difference. No dead zone if you're getting the raw axis. I don't know why you would want to do this. Maybe do a custom dead zone, whatever you want, but it's there. Now I'm going to teach you guys how to find out the value for each one of your buttons on your specific controller. I'm going to do new line, and I'm going to label it last button pressed, and gamepad last button. All you need to do is enter the ID of the controller. That's all you need to know. And we're gonna start this. Okay, so I'm about to press the X button, and I'll see what ID that outputs. 0. Now I want to find out what my triangle button does, which is the top one. 3. Let's say I want to find out what the triggers are in the back. 6. And the right one, 7. The PlayStation button in the middle, 16. Okay. Maybe the joystick when you actually press it downwards, not tilt it, but actually press it downwards, that's 10, and the right one is 11. Let's mess around with some of the triggers first. Most buttons, when you press them, they will return the entire value of 100 because they're fully pressed. They're either not pressed, 0, or they're fully pressed, 100. But the triggers are different, and that's why I want to mess around with those first. So the left trigger was 6, sorry. So we're going to be checking the left trigger value. And we're going to do gamepad 0, index number 6. And I'm going to actually show you a different button just for the example. Okay. So I'm about to press X right now, and it should return 100. Just 0 or 100, no in between. Now I'm about to press the left trigger, and I want you to see if you guys notice the difference. See that? If you barely press it, you'll get that value. Now you could use this to, change the sensitivity of something. Maybe if you want to shoot fast, you could press it all the way. If you want to shoot slowly, tilt it. And I will be actually making an example sort of like that further on in the video. But those are the differences. Most of the buttons that you just that click, they'll just return 0 or 100, but the trigger buttons are different. Don't forget that. Use it for your games. It's pretty cool. Just the same way that there's a raw input for the analog sticks, it's the same thing for the buttons. The only difference is instead of 0 to 100, it returns 0 or 1, but I'm just going to show you guys how to do it. There you go. That's the only difference. It's the same thing as just on the right side of the decimal. Let's say you want to check how many buttons there are on a controller, or maybe how many joysticks are on a controller. This is how you would do that. New line. And we're going to do make our label, and so do Gamepad, and I believe it is raw button count. And you just put the ID for your Gamepad, and it should be the same for the joysticks. It should be something like raw axis count. I knew it wasn't there. Okay. We're about to find out how many buttons there are in this controller and how many joysticks. Or how many axes, sorry. The joysticks, right? The raw axis count, that's the joysticks. No, I shouldn't say it like that. That's literally just the amount of axes there are. There are 2 joysticks and both of them have 2 axes. And the number of buttons, that's literally just the amount of buttons. I mean, pretty sure I could get to 18. One of these is 18. I just don't know which one. But yeah, 18 buttons on this controller, but I can't find the 18th one. One last thing that we can take out of the controller, which is interesting, is the ID of Gamepad. This is the name that the controller gives to the computer. I thought it would give me like a PlayStation or something, you know, something along the lines of like PS4 controller. But, you know, this is what I got. This is the ID of the Gamepad. And that's what it's called. That's what my controller is called. And I don't know, you could use that for something. Now that we know how to read all the values that the controller provides, we can start using them. Let's just get right into it. I've created a new layout with one sprite called crosshair. It has no behaviors, no instance variables, nothing you worry about. Just slap your crosshair on a layout and you could follow along. Instead of every tick, I'm going to look at the gamepad, click on it, look at its dead zone, and I'm going to be using that to check if it's actually pressed down. I'm going to be using gamepad compare axis. I'm going to be using the left joystick, so gamepad 0, which is my only gamepad connected. Check the x-axis. If it is greater than 25, turn it into an OR block, or less than negative 25, because that's the dead zone. And remember, if you push it to the right, it'll give you a value from around 25-ish, because that's the dead zone, and all the way to 100. And if you push it to the left, it could do negative 25-ish to negative 100. So make sure you're checking if it's greater than 25 or if it's less than negative 25. And if it's anywhere in between, it'll just do nothing. So we set the crosshair, set X to, first we want to get our own X and then add gamepad axis, first gamepad, and the x-axis on the left stick. You could change these values to whatever you want, really. If you refer back to earlier in the video where I listed out all the values for, at least for the standard gamepad, which has 2 joysticks, right? But since I'm using the left joystick, I'm going to put 0 to compare the x-axis on the left joystick. So we're going to do that. And then we want to copy this and just do the same thing with the y-axis. Make sure you change everything to y. Go back, set the y, change this to y, and change this to 1. Let's go ahead and run our game and see how it works. Okay, this is pretty fast. To go around this, I put this in parentheses and divide it by something like 5. Do the same thing on the other side. And there you go. This is probably the smoothest I could get it to run. So we can move our crosshair and everything, but now I want to shoot things. So I'm going to create a bullet, well, a sprite, and I don't know, a dot. Center is origin, and that little dot will have the behavior of a bullet with a speed of about 1,500. Okay, we can see it. Now, I want the game to shoot a bullet faster depending on how hard I'm pushing down the right trigger. I'm gonna first call that bullet. I'm gonna be doing every X seconds. I'm gonna be using 1.1 as the minimum value, and then we'll subtract from there. What we're going to be subtracting is the raw button, actually. So gamepad, raw button, 0, and the right shoulder trigger is index number 7. So remember, the raw button returns from 0 to 1. So when it's all the way down, raw button will return 1. So we're going to be shooting every 1.1 minus 1 seconds. So 0.1 seconds. It's just a fancy way of saying that. So that's how we control the speed. And now we need to just check if the shoulder button is even pressed. So if the button is down, gamepad 0, we're going to be actually button index down, 7. Right, so if the right shoulder button is down, shoot every 1.1 minus gamepad raw button seconds. And one more thing I might want to add is just a little buffer so that it won't detect the 0 when you barely press it. I'm gonna compare two values. Gamepad raw button 0, 7. Only trigger if it's greater than 0.3. Right? We want to create an object at halfway across the screen and at the bottom of the screen. Once this bullet is created, I want to set its angle towards position of the crosshair. So let's see if this works. You could still move around our crosshair, and I'm going to press the shoulder button. Okay, and I'm going to press it lightly and slowly go up from there. Nice. Another thing I might want to do is I want to feel when I shoot, right? So I'm going to trigger the vibrate duration. I'm going to make it a small, small vibration. Weak magnitude. I'm just going to put both of them to 10. And I'll put the controller up to the camera so maybe you guys could hear it. Okay. So now we got something shooting. And maybe I want to know how many bullets I have left. So let's program that next. I'm going to add a text object here. .48 ammo, expand it a little bit, and let's go ahead and get this started. Oh, one thing I want to add is an instance variable called ammo left, and initial value is going to be 30. So we want to add one more condition. If, let's see, we're going to compare if it's greater than, if ammo left is greater than 0, do this. And we want to also update the ammo left, which would be subtract from 1 from ammo left. Okay, so we want to, yeah, once we reach 0, we do on button pressed. And right, I don't like using the, so we're gonna do, the reason I don't like using this is because it's like A, B, X, Y, and I don't know, I wanna just use, you know, what I see on the gamepad, which would be different for me, you know, like a triangle or something. So I think the button that I want to use is index number 3. So we're gonna do on button index pressed 3, which I think is the square button on my PlayStation controller. We're just gonna set the value to back to 30. Let's see if this works. Oh, I didn't update the text, I'm sorry. Set the text to text. Oh wait, ammo left. Now if I press triangle, I mean square, it does nothing. If I press circle, nothing. Nothing. I'm sorry, I have this problem all the time. Update. Yeah, forgot to update it. Press square. Oh, that's triangle. Alright, so I don't know which index the square is. Let's go back to values. Wait, oh, this will be provided to you guys, by the way. So, I don't know, let me press square and see what value. Last button press number 2. So we can go back to crosshair. And we simply change this to number 2. There you go. Now when I press square, it reloads. Nice. Alright, now I want the player to be able to choose their own reload button. Or, you know, map out their controls, maybe. But the only control I have is the reload button, so that's what we're going to be doing. Now, I was going to use a global variable for this, but I think it's much easier if, even though I have one thing to do, I'm just going to show you guys how to do it with an array. And to do that, I'm going to put the Ajax behavior in here. And an object type, an array. Call that array the controls. And then under files, I'm going to add a new array. Width 2 and height 1, because like I said, there's only one thing to do. Now I like to use the left to label things, so I'm just going to call it reload. And since we're using square in my case, that's index number 2 as we saw a moment ago. So I'm just going to put 2 in there. And we're just going to import the array, which I'm sure you guys know how to do already, but if not, I'm still going to leave it and I'm just going to speed it up real quick. Okay, now that we have our array loaded in, I'm going to, now instead of like literally putting the number 2, I'm going to pass whatever value is in here. So that's 0, 1. So I'm going to go to controls dot at 0 1. Maybe it's 1 0. There you go. Okay, sorry, it's 1 0. So yeah, whatever value is in here, it just passes it on. 1 0 XY. I should have known that, but I didn't. All right, so we could change the which button reloads here, obviously, but we want the player to do it. Okay, I added a text file here, which I'm going to be using as a prompt. And what I'm going to be, let's see, checking if the button index is pressed, button index number 16, which is my PlayStation button. I'm going to be calling a function, and we're going to make this function right here. Add a function. I'm going to call it change reload and return type none. Okay, so once I press the PlayStation button, I want prompt to prompt the user. Okay, so it's going to set the text to that. And then we'll give the user 5 seconds. And we'll change the value in that container to gamepad.last button. Oh, last button on the 0th gamepad. We're going to call that function. Now I hope this works. Press the PlayStation button. Then I'm going to press triangle. And then I believe when we press triangle now. Yeah, we successfully changed the controls. I should probably make this a little like this. Okay, so currently I press square to reload. I'm going to shoot a little bit. Press square. Now I'm going to press the PlayStation button and then triangle and then wait 5 seconds. Has it been 5 seconds? I'm going to shoot a little more. Press square. Nothing happens. I'm going to press triangle and it reloads. There you go. That's one way to change controls, by using an array. Okay, so now we can shoot, we can move our crosshair around, we can change the mapping of the reload, which is something that I've seen asked a couple times. And I'm going to add a second gamepad. I'll be right back. Alright, so I actually did find another controller. And as you can see, it's getting ready. I'm going to make another crosshair 2, and I'm going to change this to blue so we know it's player 2. And what we want to do, we want to compare two values, and we're going to do gamepad dot how many, what is it again? Gamepad account. If it's greater than 1, we want to create a crosshair 2 at 1920 divided by 2 and 1080 divided by 2. And we copy these two. We change gamepad 0 to gamepad 1. Make sure to change all of them to gamepad 1 since this is our second controller. We get these two, press hold control and then just click on the other one. Replace object with crosshair 2. And now you want to change this 0 as well to 1. Now I don't have another one connected yet, right? But I'm about to connect it right now. There you go. That's not supposed to happen. What did I do wrong here? Actually, no, we just want to do this. Trigger once while true. There you go. Gonna disconnect it. And it stays there. And oof. Okay, now we want to check if it's disconnected, so we just do this once again. If it is equal to 1, we want to destroy the object. And okay. So I'm going to disconnect my controller once again. Run it, and it works just fine. And I am going to connect my controller, my second one. And there's my second one. I'm going to disconnect it. Nothing there, and I'm going to connect it once again. And there you go. Now I have another player. Okay guys, as always, I'm going to leave this project file in a link in the description. Hopefully you guys learned something new, and I believe I went through all like the basics that one would want to learn when trying to use the gamepad. If there's anything else, any more questions, and if I could answer them in the comments, I will try. But if not, if there are enough questions, I might make a follow-up video with another set of examples. I don't mind doing that at all. It's more content for me to make. It's fun. And, you know, it's more for you guys to learn if you actually comment your questions. So, yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching, and see you next time.